Check me out.
Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to the Mile High Mentors podcast. You know what it is. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Very excited to have you here. No matter where you're listening, I will always ask you, please subscribe, leave a review, give us your feedback. We always look for that, and we love to see it allows us to continue to make this a great platform. We have this platform for you, and we can't continue to make it great without you and telling us what you like, telling us what you don't like. I've been getting a lot of DMs on social media, on Instagram, especially on our Instagram page, telling us your local story, your local businesses, telling us what you like about the podcast, and keep it up, guys. I love engaging. Our team loves engaging with you, and we love to hear your stories and your feedback and how the podcast has maybe helped you in one way or another. So again, really appreciate it. Our objective, we're here to bring you top information, insights, resources, tools, tips, tricks, etc. from all the top local entrepreneurs, influencers, CEOs, founders, mentors, leaders that are connected with the Mile High City, have their roots here in Colorado. And that's why we want to continue to just make this great. I think it's an awesome opportunity that we have here. By the way, those of you that are listening, those of you that are listening here, we are looking for a new potential partner for this spot right here that I'm just blabbing away in to potentially advertise your local business. So advertise your local products and services. This podcast might be a great medium to get in front of our listeners. And so if that's something that you're interested in, send us an email, milehighmentors@gmail.com. You can also just hit us up on social media. You can message me or message anybody on the team and see if that's something that we could partner up on, because it would help us. We can continue to add more resources to this, grow the audience, keep making it great. And again, you're able to get your product or service, local product and service. I'd love to support a local company if we could do that. Your local product and service in front of our great listeners here. So yeah, send us an email. Today's guest is Heather Younger, and very excited to share her story with you. I actually met Heather at a networking event here in Denver, along with another, a lot of guests that we've had on the show. I've met going out and networking, which is just testament, guys. You have to get offline at some point. Go out, shake hands, smile at people, create real tangible relationships. And that's how we got kicked off. But Heather is an awesome, incredible human being. She has a podcast, which I recommend checking out. It's called Leadership with Heart, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Leadership with Heart. It's great. She's also the founder and CEO of Customer Fanatix, which is a employee experience consulting agency firm. And if you want to know what that means, we're going to have to listen to the podcast. So please check it out. Give Heather a shout on social media. We very much enjoyed talking to her. We probably could have had a 4-hour conversation. She's just a really great gal. And so without further ado, please welcome Heather to the Mile High Mentors podcast. By the way, thank you so much for coming down.
Yes,
I'm
definitely.
glad we got to make it happen.
Yeah,
very excited.
definitely.
Been talking a while now.
Yeah.
How's your podcast is going good? You're enjoying doing it?
Yes, it is. It's been going very well. I've just been super geeking out on leadership and all things good, bad, and in between with it, and with some just amazing minds, and it's been really great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like, I could just be doing this all day.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is not work. This is a good time. Getting to sit down and actually like have an in-depth conversation with people, whereas the old form of media, you get like quick snippets, and someone that we would have on the show would be on the news, and they'd have like a 5-minute segment with like, what do they call it? action clips.
Yeah, exactly.
What's it called? What's the
Yeah,
word I'm
I know
looking
what you
for?
mean though. Yeah.
Julius is back today. Hey. Very excited to have him. So what was I going to ask you? Oh, your guests. Like, how do you find your guests for your show? Like, what's the genre of guests that you're pulling in? Because I listened to a couple of the episodes, but like, who are you looking for?
So the podcast Leadership with Heart, I'm really focusing on leaders who are kind of more emotionally intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
How I get them, I either handpick them, which is only like 25% of the guests so far, and the rest are all referred to me. So someone I trust, who they know that I'm looking for guests that are leaders who lead with heart, and I trust those people. They refer me to people, and I don't really question it. I'm just one of those people. I haven't gotten anybody on Nutty so far, but I've only done maybe like 15 episodes. So I hope
It'll happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll get one crazy person.
Like really, oh gosh. But yeah, so they pretty much people are referred to me.
That's awesome.
The best way to do it, because I think that it's coming from their heart. And what I'd like to do with every person that comes on is I'd like to give them kind of tell everybody why that's listening why they're on, so that they can hear the reason. And it's so cool because then the people that are the guests that are on feel really special. Because I'm like, this Karen said you're on because you did this and you were this way and this kind of leader, and then they're like, oh, thank you for the introduction. And it's not something I have written down; it's just something I just recall from whatever the person told me. So,
yeah.
So that's been going well. Again, it goes, little by little, it's getting better and better. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Ooh, I shouldn't say that. Ooh. And it just.
You really grow some self-awareness when you go back and you listen to yourself, or you like watch yourself on camera, or anything like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Mine is not video. I mean, I do videos, but those are more just me, right? But when I'm having to have someone in there like you and I mean, who knows what one of us is going to do?
I know. Yeah, it's a learning process. It really is. Like it's but for me personally, I do sales. Like I'm in a major sales position, and so like being able to like look at how you interact with people and talk to them, and when you say every 5 seconds or okay or so. Yeah.
yes, that drives me bonkers. When I hear myself doing that, I'm like, oh.
Pull her back.
Yeah, pull it back. On mine, I do have someone on the back end that does try to edit out a little bit of that.
Yeah.
For on my side or on the guest side, just to make it a little bit more smooth. But
yeah. So where are you from originally?
Well, I'm originally from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, and when I was 9, my father moved us to Las Vegas. So I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, believe it or not. When it was the Running Rebels, Tarkanian, you're too young for that, but maybe you've heard of Stacey Augman and Larry Johnson, any of those type of players.
Yeah.
They were at my school when I was there.
Wow.
So, but I was not a sports person. I still am not. So I just remember them asking me for my the notes for classes that they didn't attend, and I'd be like, no, I'm just kind of a geek. I'm a geek. So you have to go to those classes in order to get the notes.
I played sports in high school. Like I did football, baseball, wrestling. I did everything. And then as I dove into entrepreneurship, and now I'm so busy, I'm like, the game's on. It's like that's an hour and a half that I could be like getting something done. And I've just like it's weird recently, and Julius gives me a hard time for it, but I just lost interest in sports recently. It's kind of a weird thing.
I have a big sports family, so I don't have interest, but I still have to participate. I've got one kid in soccer for the Rapids, and I've got another kid that's in baseball at the school.
Is your husband a sports person?
They are sports, yeah.
Is he from here?
He's originally from Panama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, so then it's like all that. And then I have one kid who's just more of a... We call him like a nerd, but it's in a positive way because he likes Lego robotics and technical types of things.
That's a good thing now.
Types of
those
things.
are the cool kids.
Yeah. I think he's totally cool.
The cool kids.
I wish I could be that person. I tell him every day. All of my kids, I'm like, you guys are way smarter than I ever was or will be, and. Yeah, so go with it, right?
That's awesome. So you went to Vegas, lived in Vegas, and then did you go from Vegas to Colorado?
Mm-hmm.
How long were you there?
So I was in Vegas. I grew up there, so I was there for 13 years, from like 9 to 23 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you went to college out there?
I went to UNLV, which is where Larry Johnson and Stacey Augman and the different big baseball people of the time were, Tarkanian and all that. And then
I'm just looking at Julius for confirmation that these are real people.
You guys are both very young. Yeah, you guys are both very, very young, so it's like you probably remember these people. But anyway, so we did that, and then came to law school in Boulder and just never left. Just love it.
Law school, huh?
Love it. Colorado. Ooh.
Did you practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I practiced for a couple years and in Boulder, and I did like litigation work where I'd go to court. But I didn't.
I could see it.
I didn't love it.
I could see you being a badass.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know how badass I was again since I didn't stay in it, but the biggest thing was just.
Or maybe you were so badass at it, you had to get out of the game.
You're right. It was just too much paper pushing, too much law library working, and I'm just.
You're too friendly for that.
Way too people oriented. I just needed to have the time. So the thing I thrived in that environment was the marketing stuff. So I'd go to like the chambers of commerce and things like that, and I would meet with people, and I could bring in clients, and they were like, "Wow, it took us years to bring in clients, and you're just like bringing them in." And, I build rapport quickly. People trust me, and I like people.
Yeah.
So that's just how it works.
So what was your transition from that into the other corporate side of the world that wasn't law oriented?
Oh, funny enough. So when I was marketing myself at chambers and things like that, I ran into somebody who was in Mary Kay Cosmetics, and she was like, "Oh, your skin," and it was just like, "You're that." I'm like, "Really?" Because I wear no makeup, so this is really kind of hilarious. And so over time, about a year, I call it courting. She was courting me, and I'd go to different events with her, and I would see what was going on, and it was just amazing to see how all these people were so darn happy. I'm like, why are they happy and I'm miserable? We've got to get past that. I got to get past the fact that they're happy and I'm miserable. And so about a year into it, I decided she wanted me to come onto her team, and I did that. And it was really the best thing I could have ever done for my career. I was in Mary Kay for about 4.5 years, and it was really the best thing I could have ever done for my career. And it was.
Do you still do Mary Kay?
No, don't do. No, it's been many years since I've been there. But when I think of, like, if people were to ask me, would it be law school or would it be Mary Kay? If I had to choose, like, to me, what was the most important and what kind of formed me today was literally working for that organization.
Yeah, because you're more entrepreneurial in that type.
You are entrepreneurial,
right? It's a multi-level marketing.
It is. MLM.
Yeah,
they don't really like to call it that.
Well, of course they don't, because
whatever it is. But in the end,
there's a negative. There is
aura
around that.
Yeah, but you know what? To be honest, the level of training they provided us, leadership training, team building, speaking to people about things around money. I mean, you think about us as entrepreneurs, we have to. We're, in the end, when you have a business, you're having people part with their money for your services or for your products, right? And so Mary Kay was kind of the foundation for me. It helped me just completely break out of comfort zones and learn a lot of stuff there. So yeah, so it was really good to be in that space.
And you had a team?
I had a team. I had iron cars and had a team of women, and I had to hold meetings for them every week. And
it was go to the crazy Vegas.
It was great. Yeah, we had conferences. And in Dallas, that was where the corporate headquarters are for Mary Kay. And yeah, so it was good. It was really good. And then until it wasn't. I mean, until I just really decided that it. What I noticed in that organization. Also,
just be careful hitting that because we're going to pick it up on the mic.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so handy.
I have to tell. No, don't worry. I have to tell everybody. And it took me a while to not do it. And I'll go back and listen and yeah.
What are we, like gorillas? I don't know.
Yeah. We have Paul Janicki on the show, and he's like this boisterous like New York dude, and like I'm like, dude, stop banging the table. And he's like halfway like throughout the entire podcast, so it was kind of funny.
Anyway, so I think my exit from there, the reason why it happened, because I felt like I was thinking of myself more than others, and my personality is, I'm more other-centered person, but in that position where my success in the company depended so much on other people's actions, and I had to get them to act, and so I felt like a lot of times I was trying to get them to act on my behalf versus for their best interest, and I got to the point where I just didn't like myself. I'm like, okay, well, it's time for me to exit this stage of my career. And at the same time, my husband had a mortgage company, and I decided to go on with him and lead the sales effort. And that went very, very well, again, until it didn't. That was almost 5 years. And the mortgage industry went downhill, started happening.
So was this 2008 era?
Well, 2008, yeah, 2008, sorry, 2008. And it started around that time, 2007, 2008, yeah, exactly. So we had decided
tough time to be in that business.
It was fun when it was fun, and then it wasn't when it wasn't. All of our business was based upon referrals, and so everybody that we knew, banks and realtors, a lot of them just started to go out of business, or they left the business and went to some other place because it was like freaky for everybody. And then all our business went away because we weren't like a Wells Fargo where we had all of these marketing dollars that we could put things out in the media or in papers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or sponsor conferences or things like that. All of our stuff was based on personal relationships.
Yeah. My mom was in Wells Fargo not Wells Fargo, Remax in the loans department she's been there for 30 years in Remax.
Oh, wow.
So she was a agent for like the first half of her career, and the rest half she's been a loan officer. So I feel connected to that when people talk about it. They're like, "Oh, it was hard." I'm like, "Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it up close. It's crazy."
Yeah. So anyway, along the short of it, it's been a really good journey.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen here in Denver, because if you look across the street here, even this building, it's been up for a few months now, like several months now. They're still kind of finishing it off, but it's at like only 40% capacity.
Oh.
And a lot of the other ones, like they're overbuilding the crap out of the area here.
Really are.
And a lot of people, I don't know if this is totally, but California legalized, so
yes.
A lot of people like packed up and left back to California that were like living out here. I know. So
that's interesting.
I don't know. I think we're going to crash here in Denver pretty hard. I mean, it's good. Like no matter what, it's always going to go like that.
Yeah.
But
I tell my husband like now, because he's back in mortgages, he has his own business, and I just said, this time we're going to be really smart and make sure that you're diversified and that you have some back doors and things, because you just never know what's going to happen in the industry.
Yeah.
Trying to be really flexible. It's interesting. So you're in marketing and you're content marketing out in the world, but thinking about what we as a solopreneur. How wide do you want to go? How narrow do you want to go? Really with your focus, because I started out really big where I was customer experience, employee experience, the connection between the two, and then I kind of peeled away the customer experience side, even though that was the majority of my background, because my passion really lied within internal, the organizational side of things. But then it's like, so I've done that, and so then I do that and I go, ooh, but this is really my passion point, like right here. So how much more should I just narrow down my focus? And if I narrow too much, kind of this idea of the market and what could happen with the market, going too narrow my possibilities, right? These are the kind of things that we think of as entrepreneurs. So it's like going too big, okay, then I'm spread too thin. Is my message strong enough? Is it clear enough for the audience that I'm talking to? Is my audience too wide? Do I need to narrow it? These are all the questions that kind of come into play, and whether not as an entrepreneur and whether you're a big growing business too. It's kind of interesting.
I think everyone faces that challenge. Well, what's interesting about the time we live in is any industry is at risk of disruption at this point in time, right?
Yes.
So when I approach a marketing scenario or like a small company or even like a mid-sized few $100 million, and they're like, we help anybody and everybody. We're a do it all, be it all. That's why companies in the Fortune 500 list are disappearing like overnight, because now we have access to more information. We're able to literally go in and look at our specific industry and focus on people that can help us in our specific industry.
Yes.
I would much rather talk to an expert rather than a generalist, a specialist rather than a generalist. So I tell everybody, find your niche and focus on that niche, dominate that niche, and then scale out to other niches, because you have access to everybody.
Yep.
LinkedIn, you're heavily using LinkedIn, like 550 million people on there. Even if a small percentage is a niche, you probably have more than enough business to be working with.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. And it's like I said, that's kind of the process I'm going through now. I have evolving into kind of minimizing some of the buckets that I am focusing on for the business. And one of the areas that's really a big passion point for me, and it really just happens to be an area that's a big need out there, is this voice of the employee concept. And that's really trying to help organizations first know that they need to listen to their employees, figuring out how they listen to their employees, and then once they've done that, what is their strategy post-listening? Sounds funny when I say that, but people don't even have any clue how to do this process. And so it's just trying to help them with the steps and the processes to get them to the point where they've listened. Now what do you do? Now how do you action plan? Now that you've listened, now that you acted, how are you connecting it back to the voice so that the people that actually use their voice know that it means something, that it's power? And so that's kind of the work that I really focus on. And then it expands out a little bit to kind of like leadership We do leadership roundtables, leadership focus groups, where it's still helping them find their voices or find their truth, so they can land on really kind of viable solutions for the business and for their divisions and their departments and things like that.
So do you focus with the like the employees, not necessarily the lead, like a head of a department? You would work with the head of a department and the employees and do like internal training, like you're actually going into the company and training with them, or you have like a how does that work?
So my two kind of main focuses are leadership effectiveness, which is like kind of the leadership development training stuff you're talking about, and executive coaching. And then there's this whole, again, the voice, the cycle of listening is what I call it. So the cycle of listening could be listening to the frontline employees and employee focus groups, or helping them with their survey results and what you do after that. And it also could be getting a group of leaders, let's say it's a COO and their direct reports. They have an issue, they have a problem, and it's getting them together in a room and helping them to kind of dig super deep, and I call it deep tissue work, where they sometimes, you go in that massage, you go in the massage, and you're like, oh, and they're in there and they're like, and it just like hurts, and then it's a couple days later and you're like, oh man, that was so worth it. So it's taking them. So
you're in there beating them up.
That's pretty much what's happening.
I can see it.
There, we're digging.
You come from that law background, so you're probably like, here's the case, guys. Get it together.
I think the key is just I believe in getting to the truth. I mean, that advocacy I had from way back when, it started way back when I was a child, and it had never stopped. And so helping people get to their truth, it's not my truth, it's their truth. And once they get to that, there's like this eye-opening thing that happens, and I see it happen in leaders when we're in these roundtable experiences, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of screwing up with I'm not recognizing my team. Yeah, I'm kind of not the most transparent leader. Like they just start to light bulbs go off, and then they say, wow, if I can unwind that a little bit, like in the deep tissue work, then I can, engage those people, bringing them closer to me, and maybe experience less turnover too, because that's really the end result. If we can get less turnover, we can get more productivity, get better customer experience, which happens, of course, when you're doing all this stuff, this deep tissue work in the background. Yeah. So that's the kind of work I do. And then the development part of it, when I'm actually saying, okay, we've listened to the employees, or we've been in this roundtable, or we've had these retreats, and we see there's a gap in understanding or gap in learning. And then I'm able to go in there and kind of either with programs I already have in place, or customize something that just works specifically for that group, or for the organization. And sometimes what will happen is we'll get this voice employees, and we'll get maybe two pockets where it's obvious that there's two departments or two managers or whatever it is, right, that really need
people are like siloed in a lot of ways. Sometimes
it's silos, and sometimes it's just there's some really good leaders, and then there's some pockets of ones that need some more development. And sometimes we get to that once we hear what the employees are saying, and then we break it down and see what departments are those employees in, and then we go, oh, okay, so these two departments are the ones we want to focus on. Okay, so now let's go to the leaders and maybe let's coach them, or let's have, this group needs to have the training on internal customer service offering, whatever, right? It's like a lot of root cause work. Like I said, there's no other better way to describe it than to do the deep tissue, kind of peeling back the onion.
Was there somebody in your career that developed those skill sets for you?
I think I tell people that a lot of where I come from is about my background, and in my background, I was a person who didn't feel like I had a voice myself. I didn't feel like I was very powerful. So I'm from an interracial, interfaith marriage, and my mom was white and Jewish. My dad's black, and I'm practicing Christian. So very interesting background. This story could go on and on. There's a lot of depth to it, but the long and the short of it is, I wasn't really invited to any weddings. I couldn't go to bar mitzvahs. I couldn't go to a lot of different things, and I felt really like left out. I felt like my voice didn't matter. I felt like I didn't have power. I didn't have any control. So what I learned
couldn't go to weddings?
I couldn't go to anything because my mom, it was an interracial, interfaith thing, and they didn't approve of the marriage. Oh. So for me to be present...
they wouldn't let you go to bar mitzvahs and weddings and all that stuff?
Yeah, because if I went, then it would be I would be showing the error of my parents' kind of decisions, let's just say that.
What's your parents' background? Like, are they, not to shift completely, but are they entrepreneurs? Are they...
No, just kind of working class folks. Yeah, my mom is in retail. My father was just kind of like, so when we went to Las Vegas, he was a stagehand. So he was the one who kind of helped behind the scenes with some of the lighting and things like that with big shows. Yeah. So, yeah, that's
tech guy?
Not really though. I mean, maybe he would have been more tech if you think about it these days, but... So they taught him. He was a tradesman, let's put it that way. He was part of a union and things like that.
So they weren't the entrepreneurial fire lighters in your life necessarily.
They weren't. I didn't have any entrepreneurial people doing that for me. I did have a grandmother. Funny enough, the grandmother who didn't want me to go to any events was also the grandmother who pushed me to go to law school and pushed me to kind of be that real strong person I am today. And so, in a very paradoxical way, she was a big driver of it. But anyway.
Do you have siblings?
No, I'm the only child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, all of it. Very, very, very interesting. So I think
because my mom's the youngest child, and she always one thing she always talks about is like that she always feels her voice isn't heard in a way, and I wonder how that plays a role in like the corporate life, you know.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think I draw an actual parallel between where I was and where employees are. They feel powerless to the adults or to the leaders, like I felt powerless to the adults in my life. They feel like their voices don't matter. I feel like my voice didn't matter. So what I did, and this is what I tried to help them do, is to find their voices, to have that voice represent them in a way, in a clear and compelling way. And if they can't do it for themselves, I do it for them. That's why I go in and facilitate focus groups. And then I'm able to go in and kind of synthesize really key points or things that they want in order to drive their engagement and their loyalty and kind of make them feel fulfilled in the work environment. And I get to go take that to the leaders who have that power and the authority to make the decisions, to press the button, to write the check, to help to encourage better culture change.
Yeah, it's so important. We said something interesting too, like in the most recent podcast that you did, the last one that you just posted. Yeah. And you're talking about how like most companies try to develop individualism, which seems inherently like, yeah, good, we make our employees feel like individuals rather than coming together as an entity, right? Yes. Building together. And then your guest, what was his name again?
Rob Pepper.
Rob Pepper?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and he's talking. He's had employees that someone goes from a web developer in their agency, and then all of a sudden is running departments in Fortune 500 companies, and it really resonated. I've had that in my own life. Like I would not be where I am today, which is part of the reason I was very excited to have you on the podcast. Was I've had that in my own life where I was in school, but I was getting far more education and opportunity in my job that I was working with Renewal by Andersen Windows than I did anything, like in any class, anything, because I was given reign to lead people and train people. Like I was 22 years old training 25 salespeople. Some of them were 3 times my age in this event marketing department. And Nick, shout out by the way, you're awesome if you're listening to this. My manager, Nick Bonham, he would give me books. Hey, read this book, and it's like a leadership book. And hey, go do this, and like would give me free reign, like almost wasn't hawking me, but was empowering me enough to become a leader within the company. It's massively like I would not be where I am today nearly without that experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
He's still at that company?
Yeah. He actually that year we went, he went out. What? He's still there.
I thought he just left, actually.
Oh.
No. He went to the Boston. He went to corporate office.
Oh, okay.
He got promoted.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sounds like he should be on my show.
He should be. Honestly,
somebody who's empowering and lifting and
Nick would be perfect for you. I'll make an introduction to you guys. He's
definitely
an incredible dude. He's a true leader, but he's like he's not like a hard iron fist leader. He's really like give you the tools, sit back and see if you do it. I mean, you take it and you run with it. Awesome. If not, you lose that responsibility.
He does sound like Rob, actually, the way you describe him. I was really impressed with him. I mean, it's interesting because every call you're like, oh, I'm learning this, I'm learning that, but I really learned quite a bit from him. And the person that referred him was somebody I really trust and appreciate his skill set. And I was very impressed with him. So each time I get on those shows, it's like, now, all right, we're going to go away from it. I'm going to go, I'm going to meet someone new. I'm going to learn someone and learn something else. And then you're going to be doing the same thing. So
exactly.
That's the beauty of all of it.
Yeah, it's true. And I agree. Like shared vision, it really makes an impact. I mean, when there's 3 of us in a managerial role at that time, 4 of us in a managerial role at that time, in a year and a half, made a huge leap. Like we went from $4.5 million to $11 million.
Wow.
Like that.
That's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
very quick.
That's pretty amazing.
So I'll introduce you. He's awesome.
That's
definitely
great.
recommend getting him on the show.
That's awesome.
So when did the book come into play? You wrote that recently, right?
Yeah, well, it was last July, so July 2017 is when I wrote it. So I actually wrote that book while I was still working full-time and building Customer Fanatix on the side. So Customer Fanatix was a side hustle for about a year and a half.
What were you doing at the time?
Organizational development at Adams County. I was. They hired me in customer experience, and then they just felt like there was reorgs happening, and I was just obviously should have just been in the organizational development space. I'd already been doing that in the customer experience role because my philosophy has always been internal customer, external customer. We start internally with those customers, we go externally to those customers. It's always been that way, and my message has again gone like this, and people are still used to coming to me for customer experience stuff. They're like, hey, what about this? I'm like, no, I have someone I can refer you to customer experience kind of advisory things, and they're like, that's what you were doing? But I'm doing internals. I do internal stuff now.
Yeah, because customer experience is at its core really like marketing, account-based marketing in some ways, right? Incentive, customer.
It depends on if you're
relationship.
This was public sector.
Yeah.
In private sector, there is an element of that as well. There's a kind of relationship management side, but it's really about the journey. So even now with the internal customer, the employee, it's always about the journey and how we impacting it. So with the customer who's external to the business, it's just finding out like what their experience is like. So I was looking more holistically or more strategically towards that. In the last 5 years of my working career was more about strategy and how are we looking globally at the customer experience versus, for example, when I was in large account management, it wasn't as much about the global experience as it was how much more spend can we get from the existing multi-million-dollar client type of thing. So it's just a different look, right? And then when I got to the post-sales experience, it was really mostly focused on what does their journey look like, how can we improve every step of their journey, and really helping people, so kind of that changing mindsets internally inside the organization. How do we change the employees' mindsets and the leaders' mindsets about every step of the way, how they impact that customer journey, what it is they do or fail to do. And that's where my focus on leaders, and so everything I talk about now as far as my book and my podcast and my videos are all about leaders. And it's because I started to boil down this idea of experience, customers, external or internal, and looked at what's the key driver? What's the main reason for success or failure in either one of those spaces? And it was in leadership. And as
of course, right? Yeah, it's always in leadership.
It was kind of like, who are the ones that actually can press the button again, can write the check, can make the decision, can walk right by their employees without saying hi, can walk by their employees and have a conversation. Who are those people? It was leaders. So pretty much in my mind, everything starts and stops with them. So almost everything I do, it ends up boiled down to I have to go back to the leadership team. So I don't like work with employees in a vacuum and then stop there. I work with employees, synthesize the information, and then make sure I develop a message that's compelling to the leaders so they know how they can act, how they need to act in order to increase, again, reduce retention, increase engagement, whatever increase.
Even just probably wasted time and in the office. Like, think of how much time is wasted just like, oh, I don't care about this. Like,
talking at the water cooler about their bar, like all of that. And by the way, like I know that this is not something that's going to ever end. Like I'm always going to be working. I'm always going to have this job because there's always going to be leaders who are not listening, and there are leaders who don't get it. Right. My job isn't to change the entire world; it's to change one leader at a time. So I'm just trying to like have one person hears me, hears the message, and says, I can do this one thing differently. Okay, I'm going to tweak my leadership style this way. Now I can improve this subset of employees' experience. And that's kind of my focus because I'm not naive enough to think that this is ever going to go away. Right. There's always going to be those who are just above it all.
I mean, humans, as long as humans are being the heads of departments, we're not at the robot space yet. Yeah. Maybe soon, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe you can be a robot CX or internal. Wait, so what is it? So is it EX then?
It is EX. Well, it's EX.
Interesting.
I don't really like. But
is that an actual genre, or is this your core?
It is. No,
EX is.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Employee experience, but it's not something like I don't actually like go out and write because it's kind of an acronym or it's what is it? Like a word that most people won't know.
It's
I want to do normal talk.
Yeah. It's what's the term?
Can't think jargon.
Yeah, jargon. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's like, why do I want to do that? So I try to speak in all of our normal talk because then people can understand the message. And why would I speak up here? It's like with law. It still drives me nuts when people are like, can you read this contract? I'm like, well, I'm not practicing anymore. I know, but you're going to know more than I am. I'm like, it just drives me nuts that you can't read a contract and you can't understand it. So you're trying to go into service you're trying to buy a service or a product from a company and you can't even understand the agreement you're going into.
Right.
So that's a customer experience thing for me. It's
yeah.
Like, I need you to create a contract that I can understand in order for me to sign it. Yeah, I won't buy your products or your services if I don't understand what your contract says. Make sure that it speaks to me. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the gist of it.
So how can leaders, anybody that's listening to this, how could they immediately go in and start being a change agent in that organization without having to bring in a third party person right away, like actually go and implement change? What are some of the top maybe 2 or 3 or 4 things?
Well, I think that any leader first has to start with them. So you don't need a third party person to be thinking about how are you more self-aware about the things that you do or fail to do or things that you say or fail to say. So, that would be the very first point is increasing your self-awareness.
And elaborate on that. How do you create your self-awareness?
Well, I think a lot of times,
should they go like drop acid or something like that to go on an ayahuasca trip?
So some ways that you can do it.
Is there some like, is there some actual like, is there some really practical immediate ways to do that?
I would say, like, for example, if you are in the organization and you have a colleague that you trust, somebody that you trust in the organization, and you're in meetings with them a lot.
Yeah.
Have them kind of sniff test your style inside of
Sounds
meetings.
kind of creepy.
And then go back later and ask them ask their opinion of how they perceived you, or how, if you had to do a presentation, how did it come off? Was it persuasive? Was it others focused? Those kind of things.
Collecting feedback.
So getting feedback. Again, I'm a voice of the employer, a voice person. So I believe getting the voice of other people about their impression of you is extremely important. So
and that's tough. Getting feedback is anybody. Just we're wired that way.
Yep.
Even when you ask for feedback and you actually get it, and you still cringe when you receive it. So how can people be more receptive to feedback when it occurs?
I think it's really about putting the ego aside. And anybody who's successful has a pretty big ego. I mean, I don't care what it is we say about them. They could work at a nonprofit for helping other people in a big organization, and they could be bringing in $100 million. They might be helping people, and maybe others focus. In the end, they still have an ego, because it has to be about them. So much of it is them up front. So we have to put our ego to the back burner and say, how is it that I can lead people better? How can I communicate more effectively? And in order to do that, I have to take my feelings, my puffed upness, I have to put it down, bring the shoulders down, and let this person give it to me. I mean, it's just there's no other way to do it. You have to prepare your mind for the feedback, right? Yeah, you have to prepare your mind for the feedback.
Right.
So so that's pretty much, I think, how you do it. It's all about a mindset.
So how do you, we'll go even deeper, like ego. How do you find, what are some practical ways to relax the ego if you really do, if you haven't made that shift? That's a very tough feat for a lot of people. I mean, even me, sometimes I catch myself doing it all the time.
So I think that once that you get some of the feedback or find some ways to kind of increase your self-awareness, and I do, by the way, I'm certified in emotional and social intelligence, so I have classes and workshops and coaching and things I do in this space. But really, when we're talking about ego, in the emotional intelligence space, if you also are someone who's socially aware, it means that you're aware of the feelings of others. You're more empathetic and open to how others are feeling. So if you have that already in you, then it makes you be okay with setting your ego aside, because it's for the benefit of others. So
building empathy is a gateway to setting the ego aside.
I do think it's a big part of it. Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So it's once I care, like I always, all you need to do as a leader is care. That doesn't cost a thing. You don't have to go get a coach for that. You just have to care. So once you care, then you can say, okay, I'm setting what I think I know. I'm setting who I think I am aside, and I'm going to listen to this person that I trust. and they told me this particular thing, and did it hurt? Yes. I've had 360 feedback. This is the other thing I would do. So this is another form of feedback. Have you ever had 360 feedback before?
I'm familiar with it, but yeah.
So 360 feedback literally is, there's different
like a round table of feedback from.
Well, you can do it that way too, which is even more raw. Most people aren't as.
It can get kind of brutal.
To do that would be hard. So this is a kind of like.
We did door-to-door sales, so I'd say like we could literally handle anything emotionally damaging.
Yes. Well, that's what Mary Kay did for me. I'm going to go back to.
Okay.
Because that's part of that too. So basically, the assessment has a look at your managers. Your manager gives you feedback. Your colleagues give you feedback. And it's all like in a survey, like a digital survey type thing, and they ask a set of questions. And then your team members give you feedback. So you have different levels of feedback, and then you can get, that's why it's 360, because you get different views of who you are and how you're perceived. Mm-hmm. And so I've had that before when I was part of a leadership team, and the results came back, and I would say like it was really great for my team members. My team members loved me, and that's kind of the MO. They loved me because I care for them, right? But then and then my colleagues were like middle of the road. They were like, you're great, but how the heck do you have that much time to recognize people all the time? And why are you so focused on others all the time? Who has that much time? Like, that's the kind of thing I would get, the feedback. And then my manager would be like, you spend so much time protecting your people. You spend so much time doing this and that. You need to be more strategic. So these are the different levels of feedback, right? But it hurts. So then what's happening is you don't know who gave it to you. You know there's different levels, and you know your manager, but everybody else, you don't know the names. You don't know who it is, that said what. So you spend a lot of time sometimes rolling in and out of your brain about, I wonder who said that. Boy, that really who said that. And you're just doing it, and it hurts. You're like, oh, I get it. But then after you get past it, it's the deep tissue stuff. Once you get past that few months of kind of taking in and you let it all settle into your bones, then you're able to really go, okay, what was it that I should be hearing from what should I be taking from all this to improve who I am? Yeah. So those are some of the interesting things. Thinking about Mary Kay though, when you say go to door, one of the things that they did, this is the reason why it was so important, they taught us to go to like grocery stores, malls, and I would just like find women, and if I have to, my personality is integrity based, so I have to find someone who I really thought had like beautiful skin or something I can compliment and I would literally go up to them, just compliment them and have a conversation and get a facial, and I mean that's how it would be. It'd just be total cold, and then they would be inviting me into their home to do facials with them and their friends or just them by themselves. And yes, I know what you mean by just cold into it, and this is kind of a little bit.
You really cut your teeth, and I think everyone needs to have some sort of, if they're going to go into business in one form or another, everyone needs to have some sort of experience like that.
Yeah. They absolutely do.
Any role. You understand people, you read people very well. So have you ever actually gone into an organization and seen someone that you truly feel just, they don't care? They really aren't there. Like, they don't care to put in the work. And would you ever like go in and recommend anything to the leadership? Like, hey, this guy should not be here. Do you have to have that discussion at times?
I have seen that before, and I have had that discussion. Here's my personal philosophy around that. I believe in protecting the ones who can't protect themselves. Again, goes back to my childhood, goes back to the advocacy in law. And in the workplace, I always saw myself as an advocate. And I think other leaders should take on that role of advocate, whether it's their team or it's all of the people inside the organization, their big team, right? In this space where I saw this person was really just not building trust, was breaking down trust, was weakening the culture. I did go to kind of the folks that were above that person and just say, listen, I did believe personally that he had a scintilla of caring in him, and I think that he had the ability to be better. But it was this, and I think he actually had an awareness as well. I think it was just realizing, caring about kind of that social intelligence. So realizing how what he was doing was impacting those around him, caring about how much that impacted them and what it did to their psyche, and then what it did to their, what they were in the workplace, how they felt inside the workplace about what they did. So I think it's important to do it. I don't really care how it turns out for me, because in the end, if I'm doing the right thing, then I'm staying true to myself, and I have to have the voice that tells that story for other people when they can't tell it for themselves. So yes, I've done it. Would do it again.
That's tough. It's tough work.
Yeah, it is tough.
People work. Yeah. Do you? So we're talking about niches. Like, are you actually focusing in on any genre of type of company or organization?
So I keep having people tell me to really focus on some, a few different industries so that I can have more. you know the word for it because you're in marketing, but I guess just depth, understanding of each of the industries.
Well, because what immediately came to my mind is I work with a lot of IT and technology and like engineers type companies, and those their brains are just different from someone who's like a really empath.
Yes.
You know, they're more IQ versus EQ.
Absolutely.
So that might be something interesting.
Yeah, and I have worked in the tech. So I came from the tech space before Adams County. I was in tech. Mm-hmm. That's where I had some of that exchange we just talked about. But then I also have been in government where I coached engineers, actually like physics, folks that were just very, very high level federal government stuff. So I've been in that federal government space, and I have some clients there, and I've done obviously local government. Then there's oil and gas. So there's different industries, banking, and it just depends on. I just don't know. I really don't know if I'm there yet. I may be there yet.
I'd try it.
Right?
Try for 6 months. Say I do these specific industries. Anything outside of that, I can refer you to somebody else.
Yes.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Because I do it, and I get business in lots of different verticals. Although I tell people I only do X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So it's like, I don't know. It's weird psychology, marketing.
I think I was saying earlier, right, that I'm in the narrowing phase with the service offerings I have. And I feel like once I settle into a comfortable place with, and I think I'm getting there with, this is my comfortable place, this is what I offer now, then I can say, and I do it to these 3-4 industries. But until I feel like I'm really wholly focused on those 1 or 2 things that I'm going to be doing, because once I do that, then I can say, and I do that for banking, and I can name those industries and be good. So we'll see. Some of it has been organic. So energy is the one area that's just popped up for me, and I have a feeling I'll be going deeper and deeper inside the energy space.
Yeah,
and that's a good space to be in. Yeah,
right now. Yeah,
tech could be. I have a few talks I'll be doing over the next few months, like speaking things and facilitating things. I have one that's working with a company that is a Microsoft company. So they actually do all the outsourcing for products for Microsoft. So it's a tech company, and I'll be their keynote speaker for an event. I don't have the exact date on there. That's in June. And then I have one next week that's on, funny enough, safety leaders in the safety industry. And so that's going to be one. So, and that's again not one I would normally have gone to, but somebody came to me on that one. And then I have, again, another local government leadership conference that's happening. And then in September, I'll be speaking at it's a tech company that does voice of the employee kind of pulse surveys. So I'll be one of their keynotes for their users conference.
Oh, cool.
So that one ends up good, again, because that's right in my space.
Speaking is fun, isn't it? It's a blast when you get to get in front of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, it's like I look at it as I'm evangelizing. Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at it. Is when I'm talking and I'm doing this, I'm evangelizing to the people about what it is they need to do.
Yeah.
So again, I'm hoping to touch lives. That's really the key.
That's awesome.
Right?
So with that, anyone else listening today, what else do you think is important to share while you're here? Anything you'd like to?
Important to share. I feel like I've hit on a lot as far as what it is that's, needed. In my book and all my videos and all the different content that I put out there.
You're doing an awesome job, by the way.
Thank you. Well, I try. I could really use some organization around it all, but I do the best I can.
I would much rather be showing up consistently than have everything like so dialed in and perfect. Because we're used to that, all the preem, like people like the behind the scenes, just pick up your cell phone, record, just you, authentic. And it's working for you, obviously. Like you're getting a lot of great at LinkedIn, people recognize you and But anyways, what do you, anything else that you'd like to share?
I would just say that when I'm doing those things, the message that I say is consistently is that as leaders out there, and again, it doesn't need to be that you have a title. So I tend to talk to people who have titles, and it's because the ones that have titles have power. So I'm speaking to power. And in that case, knowing the power that they yield, not power in a negative way, but power in a positive way to change the experiences of the people they lead is huge. So the actions you take, the actions you fail to take, the things you say, the things you fail to say, those are all things that should be very intentional. And again, the fact that you just have the ability to change lives. It's crazy. You think about it. We spend more than 40 hours, some are like crazy, 60, 70, 80 hours a week in a workplace. Mm-hmm. And many people are miserable. And leaders
majority are.
Yeah, exactly. And leaders have the ability to change that.
That's upsetting, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
I hope this podcast and your podcast helps empower people to say, I deserve better than that. I'm going to pursue that.
Yeah. And I'm hoping mine will say, even to those who are listening who aren't in a managerial role, or those who are, both of them, take responsibility for yourself. Some people say, well, you're always coming down so hard on the leaders. Like, what's up with the employees? Do they not have a responsibility? Well, heck yeah, they do. It's all about self-leadership. In the end, we control our own mindset. So based upon mindset, then it leads us into our behaviors. And so yes, the employees have responsibility. In fact, the employees should be thanking the leaders who are doing a good job more and more often, because everybody needs recognition. So if we show those leaders who are doing it right, sincere appreciation too, they keep doing it. So it's kind of, they're getting that dopamine boost that the frontline employee would get when the leader recognizes them for doing a great job. So it's the same difference.
Feedback loop.
It is.
Yeah.
Feedback. I think it's really which is, again, like I said, it's one of the areas I've really focused my business on, because I do think it's critical for just in everything, not even just in the workplace, right? We think about just feedback at home and feedback with kids. I see how my kids fluff up when they think I'm going to come down on them for something. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm so super proud of you for doing this one particular thing. And they're like, thank you. And it's like, they weren't expecting that. They may have thought I was going to say something else.
Yeah.
And so it just goes along.
I haven't met your kids, but I bet they're going to be industry dominators having you as a mom.
I don't know.
Guarantee it.
I've got one kid who is an entrepreneur. I mean, he just...
How old are they?
I have one who will be 8 next week, and an 11-year-old, and 13-year-old, and 15-year-old. And the 11-year-old is the one who is the entrepreneur. I mean, to this day, he's the child
He's got it.
that lives by himself right now, and he's looking for his neck, he's looking for the business, and he's trying to find out how he can, make money, and how he can, create new products.
I sold rocks at that age.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Get him on launch.
I'm trying to. Well, yeah,
something.
we've been talking about it. He's like, things. It has to speak to him, because we went and got candy machines that he could kind of go to different vendors, and he could try to put those in their businesses so that he could refill it and give a percentage of the business and whatever, right? So he looked at that. He's like, and then every time we hear of an entrepreneur, an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, whatever, that's doing something out there in the world and doing well, then we say to him, look, and he's like, yeah, but I'm like, okay, well, hopefully something speaks to you soon, because
yeah.
I know you want to do this, so we'll see how it turns out. But
that's
they're
awesome.
all pretty amazing in their own right.
I'm sure. I wouldn't doubt it for a second.
I appreciate it. That was a God-given thing, so we just try to help to be there. We were entrusted with them, and we just try to do our best in that regard.
So how can people find your podcast? And listen. Go listen to
It's pretty much, it's
awesome.
on every podcast platform that you would normally go. So if you are on iPhone, it would be the iTunes store, but it's on Spotify. I think it's on 25 different platforms. So you just search it, and if you have any kind of device, you'll be able to get to it. And I do it weekly, and I try to keep it under 40 minutes. I actually try to keep it under 35 minutes. And I do that because I'm thinking of people like me who don't have a lot of time, and I want to be able to listen to it on a car ride. Sometimes it might be 2 car rides, depending on if I have to split it up. But so that's the reason why I do that. Yeah.
And how can people get in contact with you?
I would say LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. I'm out there a lot. It is the main source of my promotion and business flow and relationship building.
Do you have Instagram?
I do, but I don't do a lot on Instagram. I don't
know if I followed you on Instagram.
Yeah, I just don't do a lot on there. Occasionally I'll post things on there, but I would have to say LinkedIn is really where most of my audience would be.
It's like a fine wine, right?
Yes.
People don't really, especially my age demographic, they do not realize how incredible LinkedIn is. Like I'm just like shout at the top of my lungs all the time. It's like, guys, you can kill it on LinkedIn. It's so easy to get engagement, and like they don't have all those stupid like Facebook algorithms.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean, they have algorithms. Right.
Yes.
But it's easier to break through.
It's a perfect platform, but it's
easier to break through the noise.
Yeah, it is. And people are looking for the stuff I do. They're looking for it on there. They wouldn't necessarily look for it on Facebook or Instagram. So that's why I do that. So I would say LinkedIn.
I think Instagram would be good for you. Post your content out there.
Maybe with some of my videos. Yeah.
I'll show you some cool stuff on Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm starting to see some B2B stuff trickle over there.
Nice.
I'm pretty interested in. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming down. This
has been great.
Is an absolute blast.
We could talk for on, I think.
I know we probably could do a 3-hour podcast. I would if I'd get away with it if I could.
If someone would listen, right?
Yeah. I listen to 4-hour podcasts all the time.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Like Joe Rogan, he does 4-hour podcasts, 3-hour podcasts. I listen to every second of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have.
If it's good,
like it would be between dropping off to a soccer this. Again with 4 kids, I've got like soccer this.
Well, you got to break it apart. I don't sit there for 3 hours.
You just just like listen little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Guys, go check out Heather's stuff and read her book. What's the name of your book?
The 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty.
Check out her podcast. Name of podcast?
It is Leadership with Heart.
Leadership with Heart. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll chat with you next time.